Hi, I am Brent Feldman, and we're back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today, I'm actually joined by my business partner, Cullen Whitmore, the COO of Matchbox Design Group, and we're actually here today to talk about staying remote. So this is something that is important to both Cullen and I, and we've made a conscious decision in our organization to not only go remote when basically everybody else did during the pandemic, but actually stay that way. So we're now operating remote. We still do actually have an office, but we thought it would be important to chat about us staying remote, what we use in terms of tools, what our decisions were behind, sort of staying that way. But yeah, Cullen, welcome.
Well,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, you as well, man.
thanks. Well, I know that obviously that's just setting the stage for us to be able to chat about it here, but and I can definitely talk about it from my perspective. But what I think was it for you that made you not only maybe want to go remote other than the pandemic, but stay that way really.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit before the pandemic, we were already exploring, partial work from home days and things like that, and it was something that we were finding for ourselves. We were much more productive when we were not in an office environment, getting a lot more done, things along those lines. So, um, when the pandemic hit, we definitely had some challenges to get through, making sure everybody had all the right ways to communicate. We were already meeting with clients nationally, so we were very used to Google Meets, Zoom, team calls, all of the possible tools that are out there. So we just kind of had to figure out, what was right for us as a tool. But I think really for the team, it was the ability to come together and still continue to meet, continue to have a place where they could communicate and hang out and chat. But at the end of the day, just be able to separate and kind of hyper focus on the work we needed to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. I get questions all the time, and I'm sure you do, about like the common tropes are basically oh, aren't you concerned that that you don't know what they're working on? And I'm like, no. You know,
Yeah,
I,
not at
I
all. If they're not doing their job, then they're not going to have like work done.
yeah.
So it becomes very obvious.
Yeah, and I feel like I get that question. It was like, wow. Well, we have a significant amount of trust in our employees, but you're totally right. Like if you assign work and it doesn't get done, that's a pretty obvious way. But I think we also do have the fortunate benefit of having like Harvest, which is also a time tracking system, which is important for our team. It's how we build clients. It's like literally pretty critical to how we work. And it's funny that was in place far before we went remote. So I don't think it's any sort of big brothery necessity, in order for us to like find out that, they took a break in the middle of the day. But I think it's also, that was the thing that made it really easy to understand the workflow and what people were working on at the time.
Absolutely. And I think also associated with that is it did allow us to flex our schedules more.
Hmm.
We had always been really relaxed on that of like if somebody's got a doctor's appointment, if somebody needs, to do something with their kid or something along those lines, it's yeah, hey, I'm gonna shift my hours a little bit. This just continued to naturally fall in that flow.
Hmm.
Um, I do think we had some challenges early on. And it was, I do want to say remote work is not for everyone. It does not work across all industries. It does not work for some personalities.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things we found early on is it we needed to find a personality for our team that could communicate effectively this way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important part of it. And, we use tools like Slack. Early on, we were using Discord,
Hmm.
and that's before Slack introduced their huddles feature. We've used Teams and different tools along those lines. We even tried Google Chat for like maybe a day or two.
Hmm.
But, having multiple communication methods, jumping on a video call like this. I think one of the really, really important communication things is being able to understand body language.
Mhm.
That's a very big part that in the asynchronous communication can get lost. But I think the other part of it is talking about asynchronous communication is really embracing it. You
Mm.
know, instead of, hey, let's jump on a call and talk about this one thing real quick and not document or share our answers with anybody else. It's let's talk about this through the task that we're working on in Asana or in one of our other tools, and from there, then if it needs to become a conversation because it's gone back and forth a few times, let's have a conversation. When we finish that conversation, let's log what we decided and kind
Mhm.
of follow up there, because it also means that people can come back and look at that and read that and catch up in their own time, like when they're working, when they're focused on it. And I know that we've also kind of implemented things like, especially with Slack is not instant communication.
Mhm.
If you need somebody instantly, you pick up the phone and call them, shoot them a text, like something, get them in a way that's not just going to ping them like a little notification. So
Mhm.
I think that, you know, that's a really important piece, but something that's made it successful for us as a whole is just, I think our team communicates well and has the tools to really communicate effectively.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up communication because I think that is one of those, probably another question that we get all the time of like, "Oh, didn't that mess up your culture?" Or like, "What about just being able to like walk over to somebody's desk and, and say, "Hey." Anyway, and there's always those kind of things, but yeah, cuz like I definitely know communication is important. And I think communicating not just on a work level but on a personal level. I know one thing that we started instituting as soon as like we went remote was the idea of the one-to-one, and having significant amounts of those with like team members. And they don't need to be every week per se, but having that opportunity about talking about them, their lives, goals, having a chance to really connect, I feel like is has been super important. And I feel like it's actually really helped our culture grow, to put some of those things in place. So I definitely I think there's some things about communication that actually even improved as we went remote, as opposed to the way they were before, where you're just catching somebody offhandedly and like, hey, why don't we chat for a second, and that maybe is a disruption or an interruption. And anyway, and so yeah, I feel like it's gotten better.
I agree with that. I think another thing that's gotten better is just our organization and documentation.
Mm,
Um, shifting to an asynchronous first workflow, um, that took some adjustments for us. I mean, it was well into the second or third year. I
mhm,
think it really kind of caught on, but and we kind of like, okay, now we see the benefits, and it's the fact that we can go look and see what was the answer on this, and it's instead of um, a meeting that pulls in multiple people, or as you had mentioned, kind of the interruption. Somebody's working on something, somebody walks up to their desk, hey, like completely pulls somebody out of focus. It's like we can go find the answer, and in the event that we don't have the answer, we make a task and we document it.
mhm,
And then the next person has the answer. And so that's been really beneficial. It's not perfect. I'm
mhm,
gonna put that out there. It's a constant iteration and work in progress. But we internally we refer to it as tribal knowledge. It's like the things that are in our heads for years, and sites that we built 12 years ago, or clients that we've had relationships with for 16 plus years. Um, we don't have all that documented. That's still somewhat in our heads. But, when things come up, we try to catch it. And I think that that's been another really beneficial thing for our team, especially as we're onboarding new team members. We we onboarded Mark our support manager like the second week of the pandemic, I
Yep.
think.
Hmm.
So he was our very first, okay, you're being onboarded fully remote. here's
Hmm.
here's everything. So but since then I think we've got a really good system in place that we've worked up over time. And also from a hiring standpoint and going through that process because um, you know, another benefit of being remote is we're not just hiring in St. Louis.
Hmm.
We, we've got team members Phoenix, Austin, Seattle. Um, like it's yeah, we're not just St. Louis only.
Yeah, yeah. I it's such a benefit. I mean, like, we still do have quite a few of our employees that are, theoretically locally. I say locally as we are. Our office is in St. Louis based, but that ability to hire from a broader pool of candidates, I feel like helps diversify the views and perspectives that you can have at your company. And I feel like I encourage it to anybody if they can. Like but one of the biggest barriers, and I think you and I kind of worked had to work this out, is that you getting the tax stuff taken care of. That was a challenge that and a hurdle that we had to overcome. So, and in all transparency, we had Zenefits. I think that was our payroll provider at the time, and it was a manual process. I think one of the people we had onboarded in Indianapolis, we had to actually fill out their online documentation for here's getting the tax account set up, and what a pain in the butt it was.
Uh,
But now we actually.
Michigan too, and
Oh
then
yeah.
some
Uh-huh.
of that stuff got messed up. Like it didn't get picked up correctly by the Bennett. That part wasn't fun. Brent and I are not like tax people.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh. That's
that's
not
not
what
what
we
we
do.
do.
Yeah. But I will say, and for anybody who wants to know this, like Paylocity, and the fact that they charge a flat rate of $150, at least that's what I believe it still is, to establish those tax sort of things with the proper state and sometimes city organ entities, and then just take care of it. And wow, a dream. That's a dream. And it's so cool because it just reinforced making that process even easier, and and making it a non-issue about like, oh, we're gonna have to go get like another tax district, or file some more forms, or anyway. And I feel like that was a real catalyst for us continuing to hire too.
I agree. You've touched on something. You kind of said it just a few times here. Is that we still have an office,
Oh
and
yeah. Uh-huh.
um, that is um, full transparency. We have it up for sale. If we're also open to lease it if somebody's interested. Um, but that was a transition for us that we're still trying to figure out. Really, we I believe it was pretty much 11 months before the pandemic. We purchased an office space, not leased, but purchased. And it's a beautiful space. We love it. We still use it for team meetings. Sometimes we'll meet with clients there. At the end of the year, we fly the team in, and we'll have a team party. Everybody comes in, and we use the office for like leadership plannings and things like that. But it is something that is kind of this commitment to being remote. We're like, let's sell it. We're
Mhm.
not using it. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
um, I think that, sometimes we have people ask us, but don't you have an office? And we're like, yeah.
We do, and it's lonely.
It is.
Uh, hey, and that is one of those things that, like, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, like, fortunately or unfortunately, I know that, yeah, we ended up purchasing that space, but yeah, we could have been on the other side of it and had a rented space, and and there's definitely the alternative, unfortunately, for that matter. I think at the end of the day, having the space has been fine, but yeah, when you have a space like that that's like underutilized, yeah, that's where, we were both like, yeah, I think it's time to let it go.
Yeah, and I think early on as well, it was something that some of our teammates, they were like, "Well, we still have the office. Does that mean that we'll ever go back to it? Because I kinda like being remote." And, we really drew a line in the sand and said, "No, we moving forward, Matchbox is a remote company." And,
Mhm.
um, and so, yeah, that's been really, really helpful. Brent, who are some of the other companies that you've kind of followed that are remote only as well, and just different processes and things like that that you've picked up?
That's interesting. I first think about, like maybe like local companies. But at the same time, I know that you've been a follower of like some people like X Team, who like, started and really had a philosophy of remote from the beginning. And I feel like it's those companies that kind of set the tone for not only maybe how you could and should operate, like in a remote setting, but I also think that it struck me when I met a member of the X team, and I think it was at YosCon, and had the fortunate opportunity to go to the Netherlands, and I'm going to butcher this name, Nijmegen, I believe, yeah, is like the Dutch town in which they have the conference. But a member of the X team was there, he was just like, yeah, I'm working, from here for a little bit, gonna have like a little bit of a vacation, just going to the conference, gonna work from there, and then he's going to go back, and he was like, well, and I'm actually not going to go back home. Then I'm going to like rent a, Airbnb, and I'm going to work a month out of here. And it was just this like, the flexibility
Yeah,
that offered in terms of just a lifestyle was, well, at the moment when it wasn't the pandemic and it was 2019, I was like, wow, that sounds really neat, but at the same time, I think it was like, but how do we make that work?
yeah,
As you get ingrained into having this idea that you need an office and this is where you work and this is, the thing, you get very comfortable with it and kind of like, set in that way. And it wasn't until the pandemic that it forced us to, really be like, oh yeah, it's not only possible, but it's better. So anyway, I definitely appreciate companies like X Team that they were founded on the idea that, you don't have to be behind a desk all day. You can work from different places. And it's so cool to watch actually our team members be in different places sometimes. We have one who works out of their family home in Chicago sometimes. And just watching people be in a different environment, but still be there, be present. And I think it just goes to show that it's like, you don't have to be at an office at a desk to get work done. Literally, and thankfully we have tools and things that allow us to do that. And you're right, there's certain jobs that you just can't do that in. But I'm thankful not only that we have the type of work that allows us to do that, but really, we encourage that. We encourage the, yeah, don't sit behind your desk in, all day kind of thing.
absolutely. You gotta shake it up a little
Yeah.
bit. I
Mhm.
think, a lot of people on our team are very affected by the environment that they're in
Mhm.
as well, and being able to shift that up a little bit helps. So,
Yeah.
for people that would be looking for additional companies and resources, some big ones for me are GitLab. I
Mm.
really, really like to follow what GitLab's done. They started as a fully remote company, still fully remote. Automatic is another one, the makers of WordPress. They have they started as a remote company. They're still a fully remote company. And a lot of these companies will also put resources out of like, hey, here's the things that we've learned over, you know, the many years they've been in business. So it's and then there's also this whole like there's a subculture around digital nomads, which is very much kind of what you described, the guy from YosCon, of yeah, I'm going to go work here for a few months, and then I'm going to this country to work for a few months, and really, as long as you've got an internet connection, we can do our jobs. So,
Yeah. I mean, you worked from Wyoming, Colorado, like,
yeah, yeah, it
yeah.
was at 10,000 feet in the mountains using a
Mhm.
generator and Starlink. So that
There you go.
it
I've
was
worked
freaking
from San Francisco and Nicaragua, and yeah, like, yeah, it's so cool to be able to do that and still be like, not feel disconnected necessarily. Yeah. All right. So I have to ask you because I'm curious, and I've got one thing that was probably more of an initial drawback, but what are some like drawbacks that you feel like and it was hard for me to think of this because I was like, what drawbacks?
Yeah,
Like
I actually have 2,
yeah.
and they're ones that were, um, that I think are very one of them I think is very important for somebody that's looking to embrace remote work, and it's that you need to set a section of where you live, like a place where you live, that is for work only, and it's because if you don't do that, you can't get away from your work.
Mhm.
Like, you should never set your office in your bedroom because then you mentally begin to start associating like being in bed or sleep or things like that with work. So I will not take work into my bedroom. And so I think that that's really important to set boundaries like that. Um, and I actually just had a conversation this earlier this week, I think, um, where we were talking about our commute because before I had about a 30-minute commute. Um, the morning commute, mm, take it or leave it. It was, I was thinking about everything I got to get done. I was like, I just want to get there and get started on things. But the drive home gave me an opportunity to wind down after a really long day. We work a different schedule than a lot of other companies do. And we really, because of that compact schedule, we really pack it like
Mhm.
we're full of work. Um, and that was something that sometimes I still struggle to adjust with is because I am at home. The second I step out of that door, I'm I'm dad again. I didn't have a chance to transition from work mode to family mode. And so I'd say that's a challenge at times. Uh, oh, and then the dogs. Sometimes the dogs bark. Yeah, Brent knows the thing because my dogs will go nuts. In fact, they may even do it on this call. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I just kind of go,
Yeah.
and then I have to deal with the dogs. So that happens.
Cool. Well, I've got two in mind, and I feel like the first one is less so now than it was maybe initially, and I felt like relationship development with people who weren't familiar with or didn't leverage, sort of like video chat was harder, so like definitely during like the sales process with like an organization, certainly people were just adjusting to like being like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing this over, Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. And it really did make it or it seemed harder to, really develop, good relationships with people, to, get to the meat of things, to have people, be transparent, reveal stuff. But I feel like that waned over time, that people got used to it. They understood that it was like, the default mode of communication, and then I feel like it turned into something that was, quite natural and easy. And I feel like everybody has gotten better at video chat, like and sort of like understanding it, and in body language and facial, things, that cues that we take are so important, as you were mentioning, body language being like, one of those things that can help you decipher, like, motivations behind things, or like you pick up on it. But I do feel like it's much better. The one thing that
I
I do
jump
feel
in
like,
real quick there
huh?
on that
Oh,
thing. I'm gonna jump in real quick there.
yeah,
You
yeah.
said you and I don't have our backgrounds blurred,
Hmm.
and I think that that's another big thing that's on there. If somebody wants to blur their background, I've got no problem with that.
Hmm.
If somebody doesn't wanna turn their camera on, okay, that's also fine. Like, I'm not gonna do any of the like, be upset that somebody didn't do any of those things. But I would say that one of the things Brent and I have found is, like, I having aspects of ourself behind us in the background, it does allow us to connect more with people and to build some of those relationships because those were things that we picked up on. We're not walking into somebody's office and getting to see, the pictures of their family and different things like that, or the sports memorabilia they've got on the wall. And so um, one of the things that we've been able to use is, kind of connecting over like, oh, hey, what's in your background? And, or if somebody does have the other day, somebody had like a nice cabin background with fire. And I was like, all right, I want to go there. Like, that's it. So,
Uh-huh.
but, just using those as cues to continue to build those relationships, I think is important. So,
That's a really good point. Yeah, actually, I love like finding like little things in the background of somebody's like thing and being like, oh, cool, I like that thing over there, and and it usually starts people talking, kind of warms them up, and yeah, it's easy for them to start divulging more about themselves. But we're inviting everybody into like our own personal space, and
yeah.
when you do that, there's more opportunities for us to hopefully understand who that person is a little bit better, which is fun. I do have to say the one other the downside that I think of, and it's not, the end of the world. I feel like it does allow us to do a lot during the day, but is this idea that we can get a million meetings in and it's back to 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 back. And and sometimes the entire day long. And that can be truly, mentally exhausting, different than the physical exhaustion of sometimes going to like, people's offices. Because like there, as you were like, maybe going out into person for to do a lot of those meetings, you had to have a break because you'd have to drive to the next meeting. Just like you were saying, that's your time to kind of decompress and actually, maybe take a little bit of separation there. But as you don't get that opportunity when you can see your calendar or somebody else's calendar, and you're like, oh, well, I'll just pop it on right after this. Oh, I'll just do that. Oh, I have an open block of 30 minutes here. It leads towards basically packing your day full. And I feel like there's definitely there's pros to it that you can get a lot in. I could get in more meetings now than I ever could, back in the day. But I do feel like it can leave you a different type of exhausted if you've got that much stuff going.
Yeah, I agree completely, especially if there's stuff that you're responsible for after those meetings,
Yeah.
because a lot of times you'll end up without that transition period where you could take what you just talked about, write down your action items, make tasks for those, do things along those lines. Um, Sometimes you're frantically scrambling during the meeting because at the very end of it you're jumping right into your next one. So, man, I hear you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, like I feel like there's been so many positive things about us doing remote work. And, I feel like, whether it's like the team that we've, been able to get aren't, all in the St. Louis area, I feel like they've been great. I feel like there's just so many great things about us being able to like, utilize these times of like one-to-ones and connect with people and just the type of lifestyle that you get to have if you aren't trapped at an office. And so this is, no offense to anybody that wants to work in that environment and some people that have to work in that environment. And definitely I feel like there's pros to that as well.
Yep.
But it's definitely neat to, have this opportunity to have a company like this. And I feel like it's been great for us so far.
Absolutely, it is, and I think there's something you said there. It's very, very important. Is that you know some people need to work in that other environment, and we encourage that. Like,
Mhm.
it's fine what works for you. We found that this works for us, and it really is beneficial to other people that work like us because
Mhm.
they're able to thrive at Matchbox. And, some people that may not have done well or may have struggled a little bit in an office environment. So it's been really cool. It's been great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Any other thoughts? Oh,
No, I think right now everything is yeah, good.
good.
I'm really enjoying it.
And there's a dog.
Yeah. So right at the end.
Right at the end, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Honestly, I really appreciate, the fact that we got a chance to do this. And I love when people ask those silly questions, like they still do, of like, are you guys back in the office yet? Like, and it's not silly. It's just one of those things that I feel like that's the default thing of like, you should be back there.
Well, I still get the thing, like, if I ever go back to Oklahoma, which is where, I'm from, people are like, "Oh, you're gonna move back?" I'm like, "No."
No. I'm just here. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's great. Well, seriously, thanks. It was a good chat. I
Yeah,
appreciate you being on.
absolutely. We would love to hear other, stories that people have about being remote, I am a sucker for, like, trying to find new things, and techniques and processes and things like that. So, if you got tips, tricks, let us know. I'd love to hear them.
That's a wonderful call out. Yeah, definitely because it's still it's not new anymore necessarily, but there's always new ways to, potentially work, more effectively or, yeah, new tools. So definitely would love to learn from anybody who has any thoughts or feelings. Awesome. Cool. All right.
Sounds
Well, oh, sorry, what?
I was just saying thanks. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for being on. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I am your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.